On Saturday the 29th of April 2023, I arrived at the Darksphere Megastore in London, to this glorious sight of 20 tables set up for Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. It was quite early in the morning, around 9 AM. The shopping centre had just opened, and we had this calm, serene moment before everybody arrived to take in the scene. It was, of course, the first day of the London Legends GT, the first tournament of its kind for many years in London. So just before the tournament, one of the players unfortunately dropped out, and that left me playing game one. This is a dwarf list that comes out on the comp system as +9, so it's got led by Belegar Ironhammer. You can just about see him in the middle of the picture there, leading a big block of around 52, I believe it is, dwarf warriors with hand weapon and shield. They've got a rune lord in the front rank as well. There's a block of longbeards, a block of ironbreakers, there's a BSB there, 4 war machines, so organ gun, flame cannon, and rock lobber, 1 gyrocopter. How it gets to +9? Well, it is a Highlander list, which is not too difficult to do with dwarves. However, it only means you have 1 gyrocopter, which kind of limits your control of the board there. And I've got no dispel scroll, so that can be a big miss for dwarves generally. I've tried to sort of offset that slightly by putting the Master Rune of Balance on the Rune Lord, so on the opponent's magic phase you can steal one of their dice on a 4-up. Other than that, I just have to rely on my +2 to dispel and my Master Rune of Grugony to try and protect me from the magic that was going to be thrown at me in this game. So I'm up on table 2 against Adam Knight's beautifully painted High Elves. From left to right he has 5 Illyrian Reavers. He's got a bolt thrower there on the hill. There's a Frostheart Phoenix, which is actually hiding behind the hill. We were playing with infinitely high hills and impassable terrain for this tournament. There's a block of Lothern Seaguard there, around 2022 or something. There's another block of Phoenix Guard, and this is where he had 2 hero special characters. So he has Caradrian and Corhill in that unit. So you've got a sort of quite medium, hefty-sized Phoenix Guard stubborn block there. You've then got the White Lions, who are of course also stubborn, with the BSB and the level 4 on high magic. He rolled up Fiery Convocation, Apotheosis, Soul Quench, and Arcane Unforging. Another 5 Illyrian Reavers, and behind them a small unit of 10 archers. Now, he's got a -4 list. So, and you know, I'm playing here on table 2. So it's going to be quite difficult for my dwarf here. Firstly, he's got a big magic advantage in the sense that I don't have any scroll, I don't have any wizards, of course, being dwarves, so I've got to deal with that. And he's got these 2 stubborn blocks of the Phoenix Guard and the White Lions, which none of my units are really strong enough to fight head to head, apart from, of course, my big block of warriors in the middle. But I don't think he's gonna fight me head on with one of those units. I mean, if he charges me with both of those units at the same time, I think I'm out of luck, because the Phoenix Guard have the 4-up ward, the White Lions have the probably have the Banner of the World Dragon, and therefore Belegar won't be able to touch them, and they're both stubborn blocks. So I'm not feeling very confident about a sort of head-to-head clash in the middle here. The scenario we're playing is the hold the center line scenario, which normally my army would be quite good for that, because I've got this big stubborn block of dwarf warriors in the middle here, led by Belegar. Belegar, of course, is on an Oath Stone, which means that they can't be disrupted in the flank. They still get their parry saves on the flank, and so just marching that big block up into the center of the board, it should be able to hold there for the entirety of the game, really. But I'm not feeling very confident about those White Lions and those Phoenix Guard positioned in the middle there. I think they've just got too much combat prowess, especially with those special characters in there as well. I'm not too familiar with Corhill and Caradrian's rules, but I know they've both got magic weapons, and even though I think Belegar could take them out one-on-one, it's risky. I think one of them has Killing Blow, the other one does D3 wounds on the weapon, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of them can sneak through Belegar's armor save. But anyway, let's give it a go and see how we get on. We roll for first turn, and the dwarves go first. So the 2 units of Illyrian Reavers vanguard towards the Dwarf lines, and we move on to Dwarfs turn 1. So my army pretty much stays where it is. My big block moves up maybe 1 or 2 inches just to get ahead of my lines, and the gyrocopter flies up on that right-hand side, so behind that impassable terrain. But other than that, I just stand still. I'm not really going to go for that objective straight away. I'm going to have to try and get it in the latter turns of the game. We've got that 4-sided dice you can see in the middle there, representing the middle of the board. So as you can see, it's going to take me a couple of turns for my short-legged dwarves to get up to there. But I'm hoping I can get a bit of a counter charge, you know, on turn 3 or something like that, and then try and grab the objective from there. But we'll see how we go. So let's kill some Reavers, right? I get the flame cannon and the grudge thrower on that unit of Reavers in the middle. I decided to leave the unit of Reavers on the left-hand side because they're not within charge range yet, so I think I've got an extra turn to shoot them. We kill 4 out of 5 of those Reavers, which is great, but that last Reaver doesn't panic and flee. It's still left there, which is a bit annoying. My organ gun shoots at the White Lions. I'm thinking that because my organ gun doesn't have runes on it, it's got an engineer there instead. I could actually do some damage, even if they have the Banner of the World Dragon. But the organ gun fluffs its dice and doesn't do any wounds. My cannon gets a very cheeky shot, so I actually go for that bolt thrower on the hill because I can't see the frost heart, but the cannon overshoots and actually hits the frost heart. So I'm sort of thinking, wow, what luck. He's tried to hide this frost heart, but I've hit him with the cannon anyway. But unfortunately he passes his ward save, so the frost heart lives for now. So here come the High Elves. They march full pelt towards my lines there, with the exception of the Sea Guard and Archers, who just... I think the Archers stay still and the Sea Guard just moves so they can shoot in the shooting phase. The Frosthard Phoenix remains behind that hill. I believe Adam's thinking that those Reavers can take out the cannon first and then he'll unleash the Frosthard. So that works for me. That unit of Illyrian Reavers just marches up to, you know, within charge range of my cannon. So I've got to deal with those Illyrian Reavers on my turn, or the cannons are gonna. In the magic phase, the wizard gets total power. I think actually he tries to cast Arcane Unforging first, which I dispel. He then gets total power on the Fiery Convocation on my big block. Nothing I can do about it. However, my Rune Lord does have magic resistance too, so that gives me a save. I think I was on like a 5-up save, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but I still lose about 14, 15 dwarves. So yeah, that happened, and as you can see, it's kind of smashed a big hole at the back of my big unit there. I mean, I've still got ranks there, so I'm still, you know, confident about getting that unit into combat. The silver lining for me, though, is that he then forgot the spell with the miscast result, so he won't be casting Fiery Convocation again. Thank God. In the shooting phase, the Sea Guard have moved in fire. They, you know, shoot at my warriors and, you know, don't do much damage. Combined with the bolt thrower and the archers, you know, he's got a fair amount of shooting there. But I'm quite resilient against the shooting because I've got the Master Rune of Grugny there, so my Longbeards and warriors do have a 5-up ward against shooting, along with the organ gun. The organ gun's entrenched as well, so it's -2 to hit the organ gun. The Ironbreakers have a 3-up save. The warriors have a 4-up save. You know, so I'm quite resilient against this bow fire, and so for the whole game, really, he doesn't really do much damage with the archers at all. Dwarfs turn 2, so I pivot my Ironbreakers 90 degrees so they can see those Reavers and my cannon. So if the Reavers do go into my cannon, then I can countercharge them with the Ironbreakers. I've then got the decision about what to do about this lone Illyrian Reaver in front of my organ gun. So first of all, I try to fly my gyrocopter back over its head and drop some bombs with the gyrocopter, and that should be enough to take out that Reaver, and then it means I can fire my organ gun at something else. However, the gyrocopter misfires. I couldn't believe my luck. So the gyrocopter takes a wound, and that Reaver is still there in front of my organ gun. So the next thing I try is the rock lobber. I think, well, if I can get a hit with this rock lobber on top of the that Reaver, then boom, I can take it out, and then I can fire the organ gun at the White Lions. But of course, I miss with the rock lobber, despite having a reroll, and it scatters bang on top of my dwarf warriors. Fortunately, though, I pass all my armor saves, and I just lose 1 dwarf warrior. It could have been a lot worse. It looked bad when you're putting a template on your own unit, but yeah, it happens. The only good thing about my shooting, well, the cannon misfires. Yeah, the cannon misfires, can't shoot this turn or the next turn. The only good thing about my shooting was the flame cannon, which does manage to take out that unit of Illyrian Reavers completely, just incinerates them. So that was good. And I'm not fussed about having turned my Ironbreakers around because there's nothing else that can charge them this turn anyway. So, yeah, okay, I've got rid of all the Reavers. It took me 2 turns to do it, which is a bit disappointing, but at least I'll have one more good turn of shooting at these elf blocks in the middle here to try and thin their ranks before we get into combat. It was at this point where I lifted my head and took a quick snap of the tournament there. When you're focused, concentrating on your game, often you can forget everything that's going around you. But at this point, of course, everything that was going on around me was Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. And at this point, actually, the store was still closed. So it normally opens at noon on a Saturday. So we had the first few hours to ourselves. And so it was great just to see everybody engrossed in their games and everything running smoothly. And if you go to Luke's channel as well, he also did a video at this point where he walks around and shows you all the tables. So High Elves turn 2, and the Elves advance again. With my cannon in disarray, the Frostheart Phoenix comes out to hunt, and the Elves in the middle form a line, as you can see, a sort of slanted line in the middle of the board, kind of daring me to charge both units at once, which, had my Ironbreakers been facing in the right direction, I might have actually taken him up on that. But really, what I wanted to do is get another good round of shooting in, so he's formed a position in the middle of the board there, which he could charge from that position, he could take a charge from that position, so I think that's quite a good move on his part. In the magic phase, the Frostheart Phoenix gets +1 ward save. Oh dear. I managed to dispel the Arcane Unforging again, trying to target Belegar Ironhammer, and I have to let the Soul Quench go, which kills a few Longbeards. The shooting comes again. I think they take 1 wound off the cannon from the Sea Guard. The archers kill 1 more Longbeard. But really, I've kind of shrugging off this shooting each phase. Obviously, I've got good armor saves. I'm toughness 4, so it's not doing a lot to me. So that's fine. So it's Dwarf's turn 3, and I was weighing up the charge a little bit, but decided, okay, this is really my opportunity to get a good round of shooting on these elf blocks in the middle. They're both stubborn. That charge needs to be done right, so let's not rush into it. The Ironbreakers turn and face, quick reform, move forward a little bit. The Longbeards move forward a bit as well. The Gyrocopter comes into play to sort of chaff up those white lions in case they decide to get aggressive. And we move on to the shooting. Now, the cannon's out of action, so it can't shoot this turn either. The Rocklobber, though, goes for that Frostheart, gets a direct hit. But, of course, he rolls a 4 for his ward save, and he's got +1 ward save, so he passes, and the bird is still alive for now. This bird has been hit by a cannonball and a rock, but has survived. I then fire the organ gun into the white lions, and I get a double misfire. Boom. Just like that, even with the reroll. Double misfire, and then a reroll, and I get another misfire. Yeah, so that happened. Fortunately, it's it doesn't explode or anything, but still. The flame cannon fires into the Phoenix Guard, and I think just kills 2 or 3, strips 2 or 3 off that back rank there. Really minimal damage from my shooting. The Gyrocopter also had to march to get into that position, so couldn't lay a template down on them. So, yeah, I'm feeling a bit sort of a bit annoyed that my shooting hasn't been more potent after 3 rounds of shooting. But yeah, it is what it is. I have hit this bird a couple of times, just waiting for that lucky shot where he fails his ward save and I can get a big d6 wounds. So it's High Elves turn 3, and after 3 rounds of weak shooting from both sides, it's time for the Dwarves to get their comeuppance, really. We really need to get that shooting advantage and take off a unit, or at least thin down some units enough so that we can do better in close combat. But let's see how we go. The bird and the Phoenix Guard both charge into those Ironbreakers. Now, in another list that was a bit stronger, I might have given them the Rune of Stoicism or the Ancestor Rune to let them survive that charge, but not in this list. It's quite a soft list that I've brought for the tournament. So they just crash through those Ironbreakers, really, and destroy them. The Frostheart runs them down, and the Phoenix Guard turn to face my warriors. On the white lions do not charge my Gyrocopter, actually, to my surprise. I guess Adam was thinking, let's wait to see what happens in that other combat first, and then we can decide what to do about that Gyrocopter later, and perhaps even, kill it in the magic phase. I managed to dispel the arcane unforging. He then goes for the soul quench on the gyrocopter, but doesn't get the spell off. So advantage dwarfs there a little bit, because that gyrocopter is still in the way of those white lions. So perhaps I can get another round of shooting on it. So if the High Elves have got the objective on turns 2 and 3 now, so unless I get the objectives on 4, 5 and 6, it looks like I can't win it. There is a chance that I could draw the mission though and prevent the High Elves from getting that objective. The only problem is I've only got 2 scoring units now, and that unit of Sea Guard is there sort of hanging around on the centre line, so it's going to be difficult to do, but I'd need to destroy one of their units and then hold that centre ground with my other 2 units to have a chance of drawing this objective. So it's Dwarf's turn 4, and with a mighty roar, Belegar Ironhammer leads his big unit of Dwarf warriors into the Phoenix Guard. Let's see how we get on in hand-to-hand combat. In other movement, the gyrocopter stays where it is in front of those white lions, ready to lay down a steam template. The Longbeards edge forward a little bit more to see if we can keep those white lions from going into the flank of my warriors. It's a little bit tricky, you see, because this combat against the Phoenix Guard, if you can see in the picture there, Corhill is actually on the left side of that unit, so he's not in base to base with my unit, so I can't attack Corhill directly, which is annoying because he's what's making the unit stubborn. I'm likely to win combat with all my attacks here, but because Phoenix Guard have a full right ward, it's going to take me a turn or 2 to chew through them so that I can bring Corhill into combat and kill him. I did check the arc about those white lions. They can't make it into the flank because they'll hit the gyrocopter and swing round, so they won't. I've got a turn or 2 to do it, because obviously if those white lions get in the flank, then I'm toast. But yeah, so we can move on to the shooting. The rock lobber misses the bird again, so even though it's not able to charge next turn, it's still going to be a thorn in my side, that frost heart. The Sea Guard narrowly escape a very juicy flame cannon shot, and I think they only lose about 5 of them or so, and they pass their panic test. The organ gun misfires again, just been absolutely abysmal for these first 4 turns of the game. I do kill a couple of white lions. The flame gun, the steam gun rather, from the gyrocopter does better, and I'm starting to thin out those white lions a little bit now, but they've still got a lot of attacks and still a very nasty unit. In close combat, Belegar issues a challenge, murders the unit champion there, and I do a fair amount of wounds with my dwarf warriors, win combat handsomely. But of course they're stubborn, and the BSB is just there, so they stick. So at this point in the game, I'm having to leave the table now and then to just help out with the tournament organisation. So I don't have a photo of every turn. But High Elves turn 4, the Frost Heart sort of repositions behind my lines there, ready to sort of charge any of my war machines, or perhaps even get in the rear of one of my units. The White Lions charge off that gyrocopter and destroy it. In the close combat phase, the Phoenix Guard lose combat again. Belegar actually issues a challenge which is denied. I decided to send Caradrian to the back of the unit because he's the one with the D3 wounds, which could be a bit nasty. Corhill's got the killing blow, but Belegar is immune to the killing blow, so I'm less scared of Corhill. And Corhill is, of course, the one I want to kill because he's the one making the unit stubborn. We thin out that unit of Phoenix Guard quite considerably, but it's going to take another turn or 2 to finish them off. Those white lions there are just ready to charge in, so it's do or die with my Longbeards now as well. And I forgot to mention the magic phase was quite uneventful too. I can't remember what spell got off exactly, whether it was a soul quench and it did a wound or 2 on the Longbeards, but it was quite uneventful. Dwarfs turn 5, and the Longbeards just go for it and charge the white lions. They actually do really well, and they kill 7 white lions and only lose 6 in reply. I was kind of hoping to... I got 1 wound off also on the High Mage. I was hoping to do some more wounds on him, because if I can kill that mage, then that's some points in the bag, and it's also the army general, so that could help bring some points back in favour of the dwarves. The white lions are stubborn, of course, so that combat grinds on, and it's not looking that good for the Longbeards. I do have my Thane BSB in there, but the white lions will strike before me, and so next round I'm not going to get as many attacks, and there's just not enough Longbeards there to grind it out properly. But yeah, let's see how we go with the dice. The shooting was a little bit better in that the cannon took a few wounds off that Frostheart. Finally got a hit on it, and it failed its ward save. The organ gun and flame cannon did minimal damage. I think maybe 1 more wound on it, and it was left on 2 wounds. So the Frostheart is left on 2 wounds after all my shooting. In the main fight in the middle, then Caradrian accepts the challenge this time, and Belegar with his ASF picks up 8 dice, which he can do once per game, but only does 1 wound, and Caradrian is left alive. Fortunately, Caradrian doesn't do any damage in reply, but I was hoping to take him out in 1 turn, especially with those 8 attacks. But never mind, we kill most of the Phoenix Guard, so I think it's just like the Standard Bearer, Corhill, and Caradrian left. So hopefully next turn should be enough to at least get the points for the unit, even if we don't kill all the special characters. So it is the last turn of the game. It's High Elves turn 5, and the Frostheart Phoenix decides not to go into either of my blocks. Perhaps Adam's thinking it's only on 2 wounds and he doesn't want to give away the points for it. Instead, the Frostheart goes into one of my war machines and fails in that task. Only kills 2 of the crew. The last crew member there is left fighting that bird at the end. Stubborn, of course, dwarf war machines. And so it doesn't get the points for the war machine. In the magic phase, I believe the High Mage, obviously the Mage is in combat, so there's not that much spells that they can do. I think Adam decides not to cast any spells. And so pretty much we move on to close combat. It's a stalemate in terms of the White Lions and the Longbeards. I think they do 4 kills each. They've both got a banner and BSB and musician, so it ends in a draw, which suits me really nicely because the Longbeards have exactly 5 left, so I'm not giving away the points for them. But the White Lions are down to less than 25%, so I am getting some points for that White Lion unit. So that works out really well for the Dwarves, even though had we played a 6 turn, it's quite likely those Longbeards would have been wiped out. So yeah, it just happened to be the luck of the draw there. And in the unit with Belegar, obviously Belegar is still in that challenge with Caradrian, finishes him off. The warriors finish off the last of the Phoenix Guard, so it's just Corhill left standing there, which is fantastic because I get the points for the Phoenix Guard and for Caradrian. And that pretty much concludes the game. The Dwarfs are ahead on points, but the Elves have got the objective, so it finishes a 10-10 draw. Wow, what a game. You know, the first game of the tournament, I've got sort of this really sort of high plus on the comp system, +9 Dwarf list versus a -4 High Elf list. I'm thinking, oh god, this is going to be really tough, but it turns out to be, you know, really, really enjoyable game. And that close combat in the end there, I mean, these Elves, they're very deadly, but they are a bit squishy. I think it was kind of helpful. Obviously, this list has a fighty Lord in Belegar Ironhammer, and he was in combat with a unit that didn't have a Lord to really match that. It had 2 heroes, Caradrian and Corhill, and so I was quite confident that Belegar could really just sort of keep issuing a challenge each round and take all comers in the challenge and sort of kill them one by one. So that worked out quite well. And obviously only playing 5 turns ended up helping me as well, because otherwise those White Lions would have finished off those Longbeards and started to wreak havoc on the rest of my army. What could the Dwarves have done better? I mean, just having some better shooting, really. It's obviously not very good to, you know, blame the dice, but after 3 rounds of shooting, those main blocks of Elves in the middle of the board were still pretty much intact, and that's not what you want really from a Dwarf gun line. You just want to at least make it easier for your units to win that combat when it comes around. And for the Elves, obviously the Elf shooting was bad as well. What could the Elves have done better? I'm thinking maybe got those Sea Guard into play a bit more. Obviously, after the first turn, you're kind of beginning to notice, well, you know, the Dwarfs are all toughness 4, they're all got heavy armor, so those bows aren't going to do that much. And then you're thinking, well, what else can I get out of this unit? And perhaps having another combat block there, or, you know, using them as a combat block to threaten a flank or something. Obviously, you wouldn't go head-to-head with the Sea Guard against my warriors or my Ironbreakers, but perhaps you could, you know, use them as more of a combat threat. I think in terms of the Frostheart, I would have done exactly what Adam did in terms of hiding the Frostheart until the cannon is out of action. So I think he played that quite well. But then could the Frostheart have come in to help the blocks? It's a tough one because obviously, you know, I could have killed that Frostheart in the last turn. I think my Rune Lord was also not in combat, so the Rune Lord could have made way to fight the Frostheart maybe. With a great weapon and maybe got that last wound or 2 off the Frostheart. So yeah, it's a bit of a tough call on that last turn, but it is what it is. Really enjoyable game. Adam said he enjoyed it too. And Adam did well on the tournament as well. We've got some more pictures of his painting. He was a close runner-up in the painting prize, so take a look at his High Elves. They're very nice. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button, please, if you got this far, and subscribe. And I will speak to you all soon. Goodbye.